Hey everyone, so I'm going to do the explanation for how to do this Java search, or like the array search thing. And there's a few things that I want to talk about. Like, first thing I want to do, and this is mostly for me, but hopefully a little bit for you to know where to maybe jump in the video. One thing is just to actually code it, and then maybe compare versions. And then talk about the idea of like using like a search function. And we'll talk about like kind of linear search, linear or sequential. And then kind of I'm trying to focus on things that are most important compared to array lists. And I'll try and make this, I think I'm going to try and, maybe I'll write on here and like include the times for what this is. But okay, so basically what we're getting in this one is I've given you a number, I've given you a value that you're going to search for, or like a way to find the value that you're searching for using input. One thing I found in this one, I did this kind of quickly, and I should have done this as next int, or I could have done like the parse integer thing on this. But either way, that's fine. So basically, I'm getting an array, and I'm allowing for a way to get input, and then I'm going to search for that input. This method here is just going to, so this line of code, I guess, is going to print out the result of this. This is using the search method down here. It takes in, this search method takes in a value nums, which is our integer, or integer array, and then a number, which is our, like, the value that we're searching for. So a couple things here. It says it's going to print out the index location of the number using the search method. So, okay, that means that this one for sure should be returning an integer. And somewhere down here, I need to be returning something. And I'm going to have, since it says an index, I'm going to make a value called I'm going to make a value called index to begin with. And I'll initialize that in a second once I talk a little bit more. But I'm going to initialize an index, and then I'm going to return that index whenever I get my result. Okay, so basically what should happen here is we're going to take in two things. And we said we're taking in, like, we can build the header based on what I'm telling you here. We're taking in nums, which is an integer array. Okay, so this, the first parameter here needs to be an integer array, and I'll just call it n. You can call it whatever you want, as long as whatever in here is consistent with what's in your actual method. And then same thing over here, we need to have an int. I might do like, I'm going to call it search. I think that's a good word for it. So we're trying to search for. Okay. So now, an important point here is that, well, I guess, one thing is I don't really care. I'm not going to care about having multiple values in here. Like, if there are multiple of the same values, then I'm not going to be too concerned about that. We'll just return an index of one of the values. Yeah. And normally the way these things work is like it'll return the first value, but I'm not too concerned. Just find me if this value is in there somewhere, and just find the index location of where it is. Okay, but if you don't find it, and this is a really important and common coding thing, is just return a value of -1. Because then, like, obviously, okay, -1 doesn't exist in here, so that'll tell us some information. Okay, so what I'm going to need to do is I'm going to need to do a loop. I'm going to loop through this array that I'm getting from the user, or like that I'm kind of putting into the search method, and I'm going to loop through it, and I'm just basically going to check in each location. So let me go back to my table over here. Let's get some, make this a little bit darker. So we have an array, and where's the array? Basically, I just, I have my search value here, and I just want to like knock on the, I don't know, if we want to go back to our locker analogy, I want to knock on each locker, check in the locker, and see if the search value's in there. If it is, great, I'm going to write down the number for where it is. If it's not in there, then I won't write down any number. So that's my analogy. If I want to put this into writing, I'd say, okay, well, int, I'm going to search through doing this. I want to run this as long as for the length of the array. There's some tricky stuff in here, like if we write it this way, it's going to work. If we do like less than or equals to, then we have to do some minor changes, but just kind of something to think about. Something like you might run into some issues. Like if you get an error that's called like array index out of bounds, then that means you've looked through too many spots in the array. Array index out of bounds. Okay. But just in case that pops up while you're doing your own coding. That means like basically you searched outside the array, so you might need to adjust this value here. Or adjust how you wrote that. Okay, and then I can access any location within this. If I go back to my lockers, I can access any location by calling the name of the array, n, and then accessing the locker location. Which in this case, that's what we're using our I for. So ni. So basically, if the information, if the value stored at the I index of n is the same as the value that we're searching for. So we hear that kind of if in there, right? So when you say if this is equal to that, then we want to set index equal to whatever our I value was. Okay, that makes sense, right? As we search through, if we find a value where, if we find the value in there, we just want to record the index location and then return it to the user. Also, an important thing here is that, if we don't find it, we want to return a value of -1. So we can just initialize index to be -1. In which case, like, okay, if we search through here, if we find something great, we'll change the index value. If we don't, well, okay, too bad. The index value is just going to remain -1. So this should work either way. Okay, and let's take a pop of this one. Is this giving me a... I don't think we need to worry about that. Okay, so what number we're looking for? So if I put in 31, then we should get a response of 0. If I put in a value of like 33, we should get 0, 1, 2, 3. Good, got it. And then finally, if we choose a number that doesn't exist in the array, if we choose 11, it does exist. I really got to be more careful looking at that. Let's put a value of like 3. But yeah, test. Even if I don't get it right, the computer gets it right. Okay, put in a value of 3, it's going to return -1, which lets us know that the value's not there. Okay, so what can we do here? So the one thing that I wanted to talk about in this, I'm not sure if I'm going in the right order or not, but like when I saw some of your code that you submitted, it was very like we're trying to use all these fancy methods that exist in an array, and like arrays don't have any methods really to work with. The only array method that I used here was finding its length, nothing else. So I needed to really like manually code this because there just aren't tools available for an array to use. And so that's like, it's kind of annoying. Like if I want to do this with an array list, all I would have to do, let me just pause this for a second. So like loading back into this, let me, I'm just going to cut this part out. So in this case, I've added an array. Yeah, and so if I want to see, so I've added an array list in here called test. And like, if I want to do the same thing, if I want to like print out the location, so I'm still taking in a value from the user, I'm gonna figure out if it's in there. All I need to do is do like test.contains, and actually I would do index of to find the location, like index of, and then number. And if we run this, so if now I put in like 31, it's gonna use this array list. Index, okay, the location is 0. If I put in number, let's see, 47, should be the last one, should be 6. Great. Or if I put in a number that doesn't exist, like say 3, -1. So this this array list has these tools already built into it. Whereas we had to like manually code how to make this work, an array list already has these tools built into it. So I think just to be aware of that in your own coding, like you need to, sometimes you'll need to be able to like code these little individual things without having all the extra tools of an array list. And I think for us, for IB, there's like two, we have to think about for our IA and versus what's going to be on the exam. For your IA, like for the actual coding solution thing you need to do, the array list makes a lot of sense to use because it's got a lot of tools already built into it. You don't have to code all that stuff. For the exam, it'll all be about arrays. Like there's a bunch of questions about just these simple arrays like this. So we'll have to be comfortable doing these kind of things. And furthermore, like this is just an important skill to kind of know, like, okay, why does this work? Why does the array list thing work? How does it work? Well, it implements something like this. So like kind of knowing how coding works makes it a little less mysterious. Of, like, just magically does this. Well, no, we can see now how you might code this. And what we've done here is, so I've already done a few of these. I'm not going to do the compare versions thing just to save on time. We're going to kind of compare it to array lists. What we're doing here is we are doing a search algorithm. So this set of code right here is a search algorithm. Oof. This is reading too well. But, and this is an example of a linear or sequential search algorithm. And basically it just means like sequential, we're going in a sequence. We're starting at the beginning and working our way all the way through. There are other ones that we could implement. most famously the binary search one, which is like, this is IB, classic IB topics, sequential versus binary search. Binary we won't get into right now. It requires a little bit more. We'd have to sort the list first rather than just searching it directly. So there's a little bit more work there. But know that is an option. That is as I work with my 12s on getting them ready for the test. Like, that is a topic that shows up on every single test. Um, so just kind of know that that's out there. Know that we implemented the basic search algorithm here. Yeah, and I hope that's helpful.